Hello, and welcome to Appleton Engaged. I'm your host, Timber Smith, Special Assistant to the Mayor for Community, Culture, and Belonging. And Appleton Engaged is a podcast that explores the many people, organizations, and resources that make our community a great place to live, work, and play. So whether you're a longtime resident or just getting to know Appleton, join us as we learn more about our community together. Hey, Appleton Engaged listeners, how are you doing today? Before we get started, I want to make sure that I give a special shout out to my two co-hosts. Everybody was tied up today. It is the busy season. So big shout out to Andy and Sarah. You are missed here in the studio. But that's not going to change the fact that we are about to have a fantastic episode, and it is a fantastic day because it is podcast day. So, and I'm super excited about this particular episode and this conversation because it's something that I think is so important right now, and that is journalism. Where do we get our news from, and how do they get their information to give us our news? So I'm really excited about this conversation, and we got two amazing guests here with us today. So this week's guests are Jessica Adams, Director of Partnerships for Northeast Wisconsin for Wisconsin Watch, and Miranda Dunlap, reporter for Wisconsin Watch. Jessica, Miranda, what's good? How are you doing?
Hey, Timber. Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you so much. We're excited to be here.
Hey, thank you for being here with us and the Appleton Engaged listeners. But before we jump in, can you both please tell us a little something about yourself and your association with Appleton and the surrounding Fox Cities region?
Sure. Yes. Hi, I am Jessica, and I'm the Director of Partnerships for Wisconsin Watch. And I live with my daughter and husband and dog in De Pere, Wisconsin. But as the Director of Partnerships for Northeast Wisconsin, we're working to create a presence through our nonprofit to be in more of the Northeast region rather than the whole statewide, which is what which we currently exist as. So we're heading down to the Fox Valley in Appleton to check out all the great things happening here. And yeah, I've been in Brown County for about a decade and born and raised in Door County, Wisconsin, so just not too far away.
I'm Miranda. I currently live in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and I moved there last summer after spending 2 hot years in Houston, and I'm originally from Michigan, so I'm a new Wisconsinite, but I'm just having a really great time getting to know the area.
Ooh, how did that winter treat you?
Well, like I said, from Michigan, so this is nothing out of the ordinary, but it was something to get used to after, 2 years in probably the hottest part of the country.
Facts.
She did move here in June, I think, which I think was nice. So she did get a little bit of grounding, got to check out some farmers markets before the cold temps really hit.
There you go. You didn't jump right in.
No. And I think, summer in Wisconsin is truly like something very magical. So I'm glad I had that.
Facts. It really is, especially if you're doing those farmers markets. Mm-hmm. So can you please tell us about your resource now?
Yes, I am excited to do that. So we are from Wisconsin Watch. Wisconsin Watch is a nonprofit, nonpartisan news organization. We're available online. We have a website, social media, and working to expand our presence. But we are, being that we're nonprofit, we run things a little bit differently, and we're focused on the investigative journalism side. So we've been around for about 16 years, and we are looking, as I mentioned in my intro, to expand more specifically to Northeast Wisconsin. So we identified this as an area where we can work to create more of a presence in using journalism as a tool to connect with folks. So I always tell people we're not a news desert in the sense of we have print media like you. I see your next door neighbors to the Appleton Post-Crescent, and in Green Bay we have some other papers there. So we do have a lot of resources. But one thing that makes us different is that we focus more so on the long form, in-depth investigative journalism. And that's Miranda's role, and she does a really great job with that, as well as all of our other investigative reporters.
Yeah, just to maybe add on to a little bit of, that great introduction. Yeah, Wisconsin Watch has been around since, like you said, 2009. So a long time when you compare it to other nonprofit newsrooms. It's a newer sort of trend that you're seeing a lot more of as newsrooms, for-profit media, is shrinking across the country. You're seeing different media arise in different forms to try to make this work however we can. But Wisconsin Watch has, slowly grown over the past 16 years. And like you said, we're trying to start up a presence up here. And part of that is starting through me, the first reporter in the region. I do have a pretty specific beat. I cover education and workforce and job training. So basically how people get to the jobs that they need and how workplaces find people for the jobs that they need to fill, which is a really important topic in Wisconsin across the board because, we have more jobs than we have people to fill them. So it's a big question of, how are we solving that problem? And so, yes, like Jess said, we're not the news organization that you're going to read about, school closures in. You're not going to go and probably read about the upcoming snowstorm. It's not that kind of news, but more project-based, longer-term, really in-depth stories that we think are worth devoting a good amount of resources to. And you've probably read some of our stories if you read any of your local newspapers because they're published across the state in all kinds of different papers for free.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to ask. I was going to ask, how is the content produced and sent out to the public? Is this an online thing? Is this video? Is this newspapers? How is the media distributed and shared?
Yeah, a few different ways. I think we try to reach as many people as possible, so that means being flexible. But I would say the majority of time it is a written article, which you can read online on wisconsinwatch.org. And then we share that in a bunch of different ways. So we send those stories that we've written to other media who then can put it and print it in their newspapers, and they do. Any given story that I write, about Northeast Wisconsin is probably being printed in maybe a dozen papers, even more so for people who write in other parts of the state. But on top of that, we also do several other things to, make our stories live on other platforms. So we might do a video about a story that we reported and repackage that in that way, or make a TikTok video, make a Instagram carousel. There's all sorts of ways, but I would say that it starts with that written article.
And can you give us an example of the type of story you might do? So here's what I understand so far. Mm-hmm. Understand that, I'm not going to learn about who won the high school football game and more localized stories like this. These are sounds like bigger stories that are well researched and complex. So can you give us an example of what a story that you've recently done?
Sure. So Miranda's got her specific beat, and she's been here a year almost. So she's been covering a lot of great stories that I'll let her talk more specifically about, especially in the Appleton area. But some of our other statewide stories that we've done, we've got a state bureau team who covers things at the Capitol and legislative things that are happening. We have different reporters who cover different beats, like an environmental agriculture beat. We have a immigration and policy reporter, so they're covering different things, especially now with different companies and organizations around here, farmers who are concerned about how to protect their workers. So we've got reporters covering that. We have somebody who's newly covering data centers and doing fact briefs and information about that. We have a visual reporter. We have got a photojournalist and a visual reporter who take some of our stories and put them down, as Miranda was explaining, into shorts, like to show the story visually that you can share on social media. And so we have stories ranging from talking about homelessness in Northeast Wisconsin and how the rates are increasing and what people can do about it. And that's one thing that I really appreciate about Wisconsin Watch is our solutions-based approach to reporting. So we don't have an access problem to news and information. Everybody has cell phones where they have all of that available and are, some could say, inundated with news and information. But it's more of like a quality. And we are really dedicated to the fact-checking process and how we present that information. So we have people sharing that out and have really great stories.
Yes, you hit the nail on the head. Probably a more specific example of something that we've done recently that was a pretty big in-depth story was that colleague Tom wrote a story about all of not all of, because we don't know all, but a number of towns that have a number of local governments that have signed NDAs with data center companies. So have entered into non-disparagement agreements or non-disclosure agreements. They won't disclose the terms of the whatever is happening between, the data centers and these towns. So that's, a pretty big story to crack open that really speaks to a lack of accountability for these local governments.
Maybe some challenged transparency, it sounds like.
Yes, absolutely. And so stories like that, I think, would really be our bread and butter, stories that bring something to light that was previously not of public knowledge, shines a light on something like that, shines a light on wrongdoing or something.
Miranda had a story that she was working on for several months in Kewaunee, and it kind of unearthed some more information. I'm not sure if I can get you to talk about that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, in the vein of spending, quite a bit of time and resources on these stories, a few months after I moved here, I'd spent some time in Kewaunee County just for fun, just because, it's on the coast and it's very pretty, and, just get talking with people about the area and learn, just how the nuclear power plant and its closure has sort of shaped that community over time. And then, come to learn that there's a potential that the nuclear power plant might restart and that industry might come back to this area. And so that kind of launched us into a story, talking to tons of locals about the very mixed feelings that these people have about the return of nuclear power. And part of that ended up being because people are really scared that the nuclear power plant was going to restart to fuel a data center, to put a data center nearby and sort of power that gigantic thing. And through the story, we really gave voice to a lot of the different feelings that people had. Some people were really for it. Some people really want growth and development in the area and think that's a good way to do it. But through giving those people a voice, just a few months ago, the data center company that was looking in the area and wanted to buy up some land to build there decided they'd heard enough from the people to decide that was not going to be a good thing for them and that no data center there. And so I think that's a pretty prime example of what you can do when you're boots on the ground in the area, really talking to people, taking the time to understand a really complex issue.
How do you find your stories? I mean, because it would seem like there's so many, and with the decrease in journalism outlets, I would think like there's maybe an abundance of stories, but how do you find the stories and how do you choose the ones that you think are going to be the ones that resonate with the public the most?
This is a really good question that I would love to talk about, because you talk to anyone, any of my colleagues, I know we all have documents titled story ideas, and it's just pages and pages long of things that we could dive into, right? There's no shortage of stories. Wisconsin Watch has a pretty thorough process for deciding, okay, we're going to green light this and you can go ahead and start reporting on this. There's a few questions that we want to answer. And one of them is, we want it to be timely. If it's something that you could do a year from now and it wouldn't make a difference, then like maybe let's prioritize something that you need to do right now. We want it to accomplish one of a few different things. We want it to, either shine a light on a solution to a problem that's working or seems to be working. We want it to maybe uncover wrongdoing like we talked about. We want it to give people information or news that they can use, something that is, actively useful to people. And then we want to make people feel seen and heard. And so that's a pretty okay, what does that mean? But, stories that people read and come away feeling like, wow, I'm glad I read that. That actually didn't, make me sad to read the news today. Or I saw myself or my community members in this story and it really reflected, the community that I belong to. So it needs to accomplish something. It needs to be one of those things. And from there, I think it's really a question of prioritizing which, it's hard to decide which one you're going to tackle first, but.
We also have a tip line. I know that, Tom, that data center story that you're mentioning with the NDAs, I think that came from a tip from somebody. And also prior to Miranda coming on as a reporter for Northeast Wisconsin, I had been on the ground for several months beforehand doing community listening sessions. And so I was hosting focus groups. I was having one-on-one interviews with grass top and grassroots leaders, elected officials, and talking to people in the community to hear what they are hearing as gaps in community. Because as we said, we do have news and information available, but what's something that they're missing, that they're not getting? And so I've taken all of that information that I gathered from talking to people for the past year and have shared it with Miranda and some of the other reporters to say hey, people are really worried about this, or this is something that's going on, and trying to help shape that as well. So we, are listening to the community and hearing some of those stories. One example was I was doing a focus group in Appleton, and some folks mentioned community living room, which I then shared with Miranda, and then she did a story on it that's here in Appleton. So listening to the community in that way too. One more thing I'll mention is we also had hired community listening ambassadors, and we paid them $20 an hour to be able to go into the communities, their communities, however they identified that, to be able to ask those questions too. What are some gaps? What are you missing? What do you want to hear? And they were able to get some information and get an even deeper to the community that I maybe wouldn't have been able to. So that was really great, in a project that we hope to continue doing too.
Well, previous to us starting to record, one of the things that we talked about was fact checking. And I could tell that's something that your organization takes very, very seriously. And in this time and age, I think it's a pretty important thing that when we are getting our news or these stories, these informational stories, that there is some fact checking. How does that work? And how much time goes into that?
It's a process. I think Wisconsin Watch is really unique in that a lot of time and energy is devoted to making sure everything that we publish is true, fair, accurate. I guess kind of to take a glimpse behind the curtain a little bit, how that works in practice is once I've finished writing a story and my editor has gone through it and edited it and makes it sound even better, we transition into the fact-checking process, which is I go through my story and I highlight every single sentence or every single assertion of fact, every single data point, every single name, and I link to the proof that is what it is. So someone's name spellings, for example, I might link to the audio clip in which they spelt their name for me, or maybe their LinkedIn profile. or, and every data point gets a footnote of this is the source for that. Every quote that someone has said, this is the audio recording of, you can go back and check, and this is what they said, and this is exactly what they said. Everything is double checked by someone. And, I like to think that I'm a very thorough journalist, but even so, you make silly mistakes sometimes. And, quite often I am going through the fact check and I realize, like, wow, how many times did I sit here and say, I know how to spell that person's name and I still spelt it wrong? Or I forgot a zero here and that data point is drastically different. It's a lot of errors don't happen on purpose in journalism, but they matter. So it's a long process. Probably takes me about a day to go through every story and do that. But it is very worth it because people know that when they're reading our stories, they're reading something that is very vetted and accurate.
How big is Wisconsin Watch? How big is your team?
How many reporters do we have now?
Great question. Not super sure. Probably at least a dozen.
That's what I was
A dozen
gonna say.
strong. Yeah.
We also have a really great internship program. We're known for training journalists in the area. So there's many, many reporters who come to us as interns and will work for us for a summer or a year, and then we'll move on. So I'd say some of that number is probably interns. But yeah, we have that. And then we also have their business team, which is what I'm part of. And there's probably like 8 or so of us.
What is a myth or a misunderstanding that people might have about journalism?
We would probably have different answers. I'm curious to hear what yours is, but I think mine would be that it's really hard to be a journalist right now because people don't trust the media. I think people probably think that I encounter more people who hate what I do, don't want to talk to me, dislike my profession, or distrust me immediately. That is not my experience. More often am I coming away from meeting a stranger and feeling hopeful about people, having faith in humanity, feeling like people understand the necessity of what we're doing and want to be heard. People want to talk to me more often than they don't.
I would agree with that about the stigmas and the bias about media in our current state, and that a lot of people, I think, are worried about fake news or feeling like there's a liberal media or that it's bought and people are catering the news to fit their narrative. And that's one thing that I love and appreciate about Wisconsin Watch is because we are nonprofit. We are nonpartisan. We are independent. So we don't even accept donations that are anonymous. We will send them back and say, we need your name, we need your information, we want to be transparent about that. And all of those donations can't come with any ties to trying to control editorial side either. So no one can donate and say, you have to write about this for me to give you this money. So that's something that I feel is so important in this day and age, and what really works to set us apart is that part.
Can you please share a story that would help the Appleton Engage listeners understand the impact of your resource?
One thing that the impact that I think about is how during those listening sessions, I was hearing a lot of feedback from people about what's missing, and we've really taken that into account. And on my side, on the business side, we are working to fundraise because we are a nonprofit. And so one of the things that we're working to do is to create different jobs based on those needs that were identified by the community, including like a basic needs reporter. So someone to help navigate those systems. And prior to coming to Wisconsin Watch, I worked in the human services field as like a social worker. And I worked with families who were homeless, and there's a lot that, there's transportation issues, there's criminal background issues, there's things related to access to food, and what do you do with your pet? So there's a lot of things that go into that. And when we were working to apply for some grants for this job, we connected with local nonprofit organizations who wrote us letters of support, and they used our own stories to show examples of how having a reporter to cover basic needs issues in the community would also help them. And so it's something that would help. Like we did several articles on housing and homelessness and how housing's hard to come by, and there's a Rent Smart program. And we did some human interest pieces on a nonprofit that houses women who have AODA issues in Green Bay. And these are people who are able to use our stories to help them with their grant applications and be able to apply for funding because of our fact-based resources that we had published and, have been in print, and we're able to help them secure funding. And then hopefully it'll circle back around and help us to obtain funding to continue to help them.
I would just also emphasize that the work that we do is free, and the work that we do shows up, like we talked about before, it's distributed all over the state. So I'll hear from people in, like I said, I'm new here. I'll hear from people in places in Wisconsin that I've never even heard of who have read our stories and, said that it meant something to them or that they learned something. And I think that's really the value of what we can do too, is give the information to as many people as possible because they don't need to pay for it.
Are there any upcoming initiatives, events, or engagement opportunities?
We are very excited to announce that we are launching our new Northeast Wisconsin newsletter for Wisconsin Watch. The newsletter, folks will be able to sign up online. We have 3 other newsletters that we have for the statewide program. Folks can decide if they want to sign up for any of those, but we will have a Northeast specific one. And that's where you'll get the email where you can learn about our stories, our events, upcoming events. We want to have connections to local community. Perhaps eventually someday we want to make sure that it includes connections to like hot topic issues related to school board or city council or county board or other things. So we want to make it a nice, well-rounded story, talk about community heroes, a lot of information that's accessible to the people right to their inbox, which is one thing I would hear in my listening sessions. People want to have their news appear for them. They don't want to have to go look for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I would also add that we do periodically host live events or virtual events kind of inspired by our journalism. We just finished up a event on Wisconsin's 911 dispatcher shortage, where we had a really good conversation about what can be done about that and what solutions seem to be working. And we will do, more of that in the future. So keep your eyes peeled.
What can our community do to be helpful?
I just wanted to share a fact. We are a nonprofit, so we get our funding from a lot of different places, including listeners like you. One of our funding sources is the American Journalism Project, and their director, Sarah Beth Bierman, just wrote an opinion piece for the New York Times last month, and she talked about the decline in local newsrooms and how since 2005, more than 3,500 newspapers have closed their doors. And on average, that's 2 newsrooms that close every week. So that's a big gap and a big deficit that we have. And so Wisconsin Watch is one of the newsrooms that's growing. So a lot of people are cutting reporters, they're closing their doors, and Wisconsin Watch is still growing. And we hope to continue to grow. And we can cover lots of different beats. Miranda's got the Pathways to Success beat here in Northeast Wisconsin, and we have a bunch of great ideas through that we've heard that people want, and we can cover when we have enough funding to be able to support those reporters or even interns on the ground. So we're really looking for donors to help us support our work to continue to offer free, independent news to the community and offer resources through multimedia or so there's a lot of opportunities for us to cover different news. We just need some more funding or sponsorship for events for us to be able to continue to grow. So I would say donations and sponsorship would be great.
Yes, and also story ideas. I know I did say that I have a document that's way too long, but I'm always all ears. If you have something that you think needs to be looked into, you have something that you think deserves some spotlight shined on it, always open to story ideas.
Who or how should people reach out and contact you if they would like to learn more?
If they have a tip, they should definitely contact Miranda. And your contact info is?
So I think my contact information will be in the description, but you can email me at mdunlap@wisconsinwatch.org, or you can find me on Instagram at by Miranda Dunlap. Same for Twitter or really any other place. I'm very Googleable.
And for anything, if you are interested in making a donation, an endowment, a sponsorship, or if you'd like to host a listening group with one of your community organizations or anything like that, they can definitely contact me, Jessica Adams, and my information is available online as well, or jadams@wisconsinwatch.org.
And if people want to find Wisconsin Watch stories, where should they look?
Be a great idea to start at wisconsinwatch.org.
Okay.
Yeah, and then all other social media accounts. I think we've got pretty much all of them covered. I'd say mostly people are checking our Instagram and Facebook, but I think we're on all the major ones.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any additional information that you would like to share with the Appleton Engaged listener that maybe we didn't answer or ask a question about here today?
I just want to really emphasize that I think it's difficult for a lot of people to see why they should be supporting a news organization when they feel that they have a lot of information available on their phone. But we really just want to emphasize the quality, the depth, and the accountability that Wisconsin Watch has to offer. We really believe and know that local news is a public good, and it offers unbiased local information, trustworthy news. It's a civic utility, just like having roads and schools, and it's a community connector. And we want to be able to offer all those things to the community. And we know that people, when they have the information, that they are more engaged in their community, they're more likely to vote, they're more likely to run for office, they're more likely to do taxpayer dollars go down, there's less government misspending. There's just so many benefits when local news is available and provided to the community. So being able to support that, and I had mentioned I had been in social service, and I was also in public office. I was an elected official, and so I feel like I've looked at all these different areas of some of these greater systemic issues in our area, and to me, this shines a light on all those issues. So there's a saying in the field of whatever issue you care about. So whether it's environment or housing issues or whatever it is, let journalism be the second thing, because that is the tool to be able to shine the light on the issues you care about. So just wanted to really share that free quality journalism is an important public good for civic life and democracy.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, Jessica, Miranda, it is shout out time. So who are you shouting out?
I wanted to shout out, I think, a friend of the podcast, Esther and Katie Olson. When I was looking for folks to connect with in the Appleton area, Katie seemed to know a lot of people in the area, and she connected me to a lot of really great nonprofits and community leaders. And Esther hosted one of my community listening sessions where I got really great feedback from the group and really helped to root me in the Appleton community. So Katie and Esther team, you guys are my shout out. Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to shout out the folks at Apricity here in Appleton. At the time of recording, my most recent story is about the Apricity contract packaging plant, where they hire solely people who are in recovery from substance addiction. And they were just so open and let us come spend time at the plant and talk to their employees and learn all about what they're doing. And I think it made for a really important story about the barriers that people face when they're in recovery and trying to find full-time jobs and get back on their feet. So shout out to them for helping us make that happen.
Awesome. Two great shout outs. Let me just throw out there Appleton Engaged listeners. We got episodes for both of those organizations. So if you'd like to learn more, a little bit more about Apricity or about Esther, please go check out those Appleton Engaged episodes. Well, at this time, we're going to get ready to start wrapping up this episode. So, Jessica, Miranda, on behalf of myself and the Appleton Engaged listeners, I just want to say thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Appleton Engaged listeners, I want to say thank you for giving us your minds and ears. Thank you for spending time with us and caring about another amazing resource here, helping to make Appleton and the surrounding 5 cities a better place. I think this is so important. You know, there's a saying where they say garbage in, garbage out. And I think getting good quality journalism so you can know the facts and the real stories so you can make your own personal evaluations about what's going on in your community is very important. And I think it's super important right now. So I think you should go check out Wisconsin Watch and see what they have to offer. All right. More along our lines, you know what I'm going to say. Apple Engaged listeners, we are trying to become the #1 podcast in Northeast Wisconsin, and I can't do it without your help. And what does that help look like? Well, there's a couple of things you can do. As you're listening to this episode and you're thinking, Timber, I wish you would have asked them this, or Timber, we need some segments. Let us know. Or maybe you're saying, I would make a great guest on Appleton Engaged, or I know another organization that would be a fantastic episode for you. Let us know. So reach out to us at belonging@appletonwi.gov. Once again, that is belonging@appletonwi.gov. Also, we do believe we have a pretty amazing resource here at Appleton Engaged, the podcast. And we are firm believers that an informed community is a stronger community and a community where you can feel like you belong. We would like to get in front of more eyes and ears. And there's one way you can help us do that, and it's called analytics. So while you are listening to this podcast and you see that button that says subscribe, press it. Or if you see stars, give us 5. Or if you're really motivated and you would like to write us that review, that's fantastic, and that helps too. These are all things that improve our analytics, and the better our analytics are, the more community members learn about this amazing resource known as the Appleton Engaged podcast. Okay, Appleton Engaged listeners, I'm just going to say once again, I am a firm believer that it is so important to get quality information so you can be informed community members. And I love that this particular resource is offering you the opportunity to look into things that are thoroughly researched and then fact-checked so you can be as informed as you possibly can be. So until next time, stay thoughtful, stay curious, and stay engaged.